I hope you enjoy my stories. Instead of just clicking thumbs down, please comment and share how we can do better. If you do like our video, then please like and subscribe. I'm going to tell you about this whole crazy situation with my neighborhood. I'm living in this city where everything's all about the cars, like the whole place is designed for them. You want to talk about the root of all issues our HOA deals with? It's the cars. Our neighborhood is right at the corner of an intersection with two major roads. These ain't highways, but still, they're 4 lanes wide each. Because of that, there's always cars driving by making a racket, with their loud AF engines and music blasting. It's insane how loud the traffic is. So, lots of these cars used to cut through our neighborhood. They did to dodge the traffic at the intersection and get from one big road to another. Honestly, I think it takes longer to cut through than just dealing with the traffic, but what do I know, right? Anyway, this cutting through thing is what led our HOA to do their typical shitty HOA things. Their first idea was to turn the neighborhood into a gated community. But there was this big fuss 'cause our houses are all historical and stuff. People really like to come around just to look at these houses. The HOA folks got all proud of their old houses and decided, we can't gate it off. So, the next, brilliant, move was to turn our streets into this literal F-in maze. They got some cement company to close off a few entrances to those major roads. Plus, they stuck these little turnaround zones all over the place. If you make one wrong turn, you get redirected and dumped right back onto the main road. Now, when I'm trying to get to my house, I can't just drive straight down A Street and turn right on B Street like before. It was so easy. Instead, now I gotta go down A Street for like 3 blocks, get redirected to C Street, turn right on D Street, and then, after just 1 block, you're forced onto E Street. Finally, you end up back on A Street again and then to B Street. Trust me, it's ridiculous. It's not the worst for me now. I take that route every day, so it's like embedded in my brain. But telling people how to get to my place for holidays or any special occasion. Absolute murder. I've tried giving directions, but it's like describing how to escape a corn maze. For the longest time, our messed up roads weren't even on the GPS. I mean, once there was this emergency, or so I heard, and people couldn't get through because the directions were all wrong. But I don't know the full details. Anyway, they put up all these changes, and for like 2 whole months, the GPS had no idea about the new layout. Then I went on vacation for 3 weeks. When I got back, it was finally on the GPS. I don't really know how it happened, got a lot of random rumors, but no solid answers as to why. This whole situation is just one of those classic HOA things blowing up in everyone's face. It's like, they came up with a fix that made things more complicated for us residents. And let's not even talk about the outsiders. Trying to explain how to get to our house from someone who's out of town is like saying, good luck finding your way through this adult version of a scavenger hunt. Now, let me give you more dirt on this whole HOA disaster. We got these hotshots on the board who think they're some kinda urban planning geniuses. In reality, they're just regular folks with way too much time on their hands. There's this one guy, Mr. Andrews, who's always wearing these fancy suits like he's off to some big important business meeting, but he's just going to the HOA meeting in someone's living room. He's the main dude behind the maze idea. Swears it's made the neighborhood safer and quieter, but if you ask anyone else, they're all like, man, Mr. Andrews is out of his mind. The next complaint came from all the deliveries. Amazon, UPS, FedEx, you name it, they hated our neighborhood. The drivers were going nuts trying to figure out how to deliver stuff. I mean, if you didn't know the maze, you were pretty much doomed to circling around aimlessly or giving up. There were even times when my packages were marked as undeliverable because the poor driver just couldn't figure out where to go. I remember one day, I was waiting for a new couch. The delivery guys got so lost that they called me like 5 times. By the time they finally arrived, they were visibly pissed and didn't even bother hiding their frustration. Seriously, they just left the couch in the driveway and bounced. I had to drag the whole thing in by myself. And talking about visitors, it's a nightmare. My parents, bless their hearts, came to visit me for Thanksgiving. I sent them the most detailed step-by-step directions, even wrote them down on paper, too. But my mom still calls me, almost in tears, saying they've been driving around for an hour trying to figure it out. By the time they made it, dinner was half cold and my dad had grumbled enough that he'd lost his appetite. So now my parents refuse to visit unless I come to get them personally. Local businesses also took a hit. We got this cute little cafe at the end of our street. Used to be pretty lively with folks coming in and out all day. After the maze was set up, traffic to the cafe dropped big time. The owner, Ms. Clara, went to an HOA meeting listening to Mr. Andrews' speech about how safer streets were good for the community. She straight up stood and said, "Good for the community? You've almost put me out of business." I dunno if Mr. Andrews even heard her, he was too busy patting himself on the back. The neighborhood kids, too, man did they start hating it. We used to have kids biking up and down without a care. Now it's like a relay race of who can get the farthest without getting lost. They play jokes on each other like, "Bet you $5 you can't make it to Josh's place without rerouting 5 times. Bet ya can't tell if they're having fun or just resigned to the craziness." It ain't just people either. Pets got all confused too. I have this sweet old dog named Rocky, and before, I used to let him out to roam around a bit in the yard. He's an explorer, you know? But ever since the maze, poor Rocky can't figure out his way back home. I had to get him one of those GPS collars because twice he ended up on someone else's porch, looking at them like, "I live here now?" Even the mail carriers started voicing their frustrations. They'd knock on doors randomly asking if, "This is 345 B Street?" Everyone's got this same tired look. "No, this is A Street. B Street is over there, and no wait, up there." I swear it seems like mailbox placement turned into a chaotic chore. Folks began tying ribbons, painting vivid markers, doing whatever just to help identify streets more clearly. When our friends from other areas came by, it was always a gamble. The reactions ranged from mild confusion to full-blown swearing. Reminds me of my buddy, Mike. He's always late, and asking him to come over means he's adding an extra hour to his travel time just for getting lost in the maze. He showed up one night, sweat dripping, looking half annoyed, half amused. "Dude, I felt like frickin' Indiana Jones, navigating some ancient ruins just to get to your place," he said. And speaking of holidays, Halloween turned into a complete flop the first year after the changes. People had no clue where they were going. Parents driving their kids around were as lost as can be. The usual houses which gave out the best candy had way fewer visitors. The kids who managed to navigate the maze made out like bandits because there was barely anyone else grabbing candy. There was this one house that went all out with decorations, and usually, you had to wait your turn to see him. This time, it was like a ghost town, no pun intended. Then there's the bent mailbox incident. My neighbor Joe was so mad about his box getting hit multiple times 'cause, of course, the layout is super confusing. He wakes up at 5 in the morning to find his box knocked over again. One time he took this giant stick and wrote, "Not A Street," across the section where the problem kept happening. It got better for a bit, but next thing you know, we got car tracks running through his lawn 'cause people were that desperate to reroute. And these HOA meetings? They get heated. People start arguing. Mr. Andrews keeps insisting it's all for the greater good, rattling off stats and safety numbers nobody really cares about. We're all too busy wondering when the nightmare will end. One woman, Mrs. Kim, spent 15 minutes detailing how this change meant adding precious minutes to her already long commute. Someone else chimes in about their garden getting run over by confused drivers. Trust me, these meetings ain't boring anymore. In the end, the maze remains, though talks of fixing it come and go. We've all kinda adapted, but not without missing the good old simplicity. Every new resident, delivery guy, friend or family member gets inducted unwillingly into our maze mess. Like it or not, the maze has become this bizarre reality of ours. It sticks as a peculiar, frustrating tale of a neighborhood caught in the whims of its own ill-fated fixes. Who would have thought a place designed for the ease of cars could end up like this, They could have put down some sleeping policemen or something. That is traffic calming. This trick keeping OS cars running round the neighborhood for longer, and polluting the neighborhood air as they go. A real slow hand clap moment there. Yet a few sleeping policemen laid down to slow traffic would have put them off, I'm sure. It's not enough to be on the GPS. Really, I am surprised the fire department was okay with this, and also that it didn't need city or county approval. Streets for developments, even if they are going to be in HOAs, require the developers submit street layout plans among other things, and you don't get to change them on a whim. There's a neighborhood here where I grew up that was in the same situation. During rush hour there was a 15-minute wait to get through that intersection. The neighborhood was faster at that point. They stuck in a bunch of roundabouts to make it harder to navigate. This was a couple decades before GPS became commonplace. Meant telling your friends how to come to your house was a nightmare. Update on Wiregate, since many wanted to know. Hey everyone. I have an update for those of you following my Wiregate saga. My last post blew up, and I got tons of comments, messages, and advice. Thank you all for the support. It really helped me keep my cool in a frustrating situation. If you were one of the people who read my last post and were eagerly waiting for an update, here it is. So, as it turns out, the HOA did admit to cutting my internet wire. I know, shocking, right? It wasn't entirely surprising, given how things looked. According to their version of the story, there was some kind of miscommunication. They claim the guy who cut the wire wasn't actually supposed to cut it but was just supposed to inspect it and then figure out a solution to reduce the eyesore. Somewhere between the decision-making and the dude with the wire cutters, things got lost in translation, or so they say. Whether that's the real reason or a convenient cover-up, who knows? But after I got understandably angry on the phone with them, things started moving quickly. It's amazing how mention of the FCC and the potential of filing a police report can motivate people to apologize and take responsibility. They even said they'd cover any fees that Spectrum might charge for the repair. To address the internet issue, we did a three-way call with Spectrum and got the green light for them to make any necessary repairs and bill the HOA for any extra fees. So that part was a win. But of course, just covering the fees didn't make up for the 4 days I had to go without internet. Who can live without the internet in this day and age? Not me, that's for sure. So, I pushed back and asked what they planned to do to make me whole for their mistake. They came up with an offer to waive 2 months of HOA fees as an apology. Considering the headache they'd caused, especially since we rely so heavily on the internet for practically everything, work, entertainment, staying in touch with people, I agreed to the deal. I figured it was better to get something for the inconvenience rather than drag this out. Heck, I just wanted my internet back up and running. Spectrum was pretty cool about the whole thing, too. They understood my frustration and agreed to prorate the days I was without service. Plus, they even bumped up my internet speeds as a gesture of goodwill for being a loyal customer. Gotta love that. In the end, it felt like everything worked out okay. The HOA handled things pretty suspiciously at first. I was on hold for about 10 minutes after I raised my concerns, probably while they scrambled to figure out how to pull their foot out of their mouth. But when they came back on the line, they were super apologetic and really nice all of a sudden. Amazing what a bit of heat can do to swift up the customer service levels, huh? Spectrum is scheduled to come out tomorrow to rewire and make the necessary repairs. Spectrum techs even said the original problem was a super easy fix. They could have just moved the wire up and out of sight, and no one would have noticed. It's ridiculous that it escalated to this whole mess. Honestly, all the HOA had to do was talk to me about the issue, and I would have just called Spectrum myself. I'm hoping that once Spectrum makes their visit, everything will be back to normal and we can all move on. It's the first time the HOA has messed with my house, so I can't definitively say this is a trash HOA. Maybe it's just a one-time screw-up. But still, what a first impression. Thank you to everyone who gave advice or was on my side through this ordeal. Your support really made a difference, and I felt way more empowered dealing with the HOA and Spectrum because of you. Here's hoping that's the last chapter in the Wiregate saga, and we can all get back to our regularly scheduled internet browsing. I'll keep you updated if anything else happens, but fingers crossed it's all smooth sailing from here on out. Cheers. Absolutely not. If I were in that situation, I would have immediately reported the issue to both the police and the FCC. HOAs often impose unfair regulations and can sometimes make life extremely difficult for residents by levying fines and even causing people to lose their homes through liens and other legal maneuvers. Their power often goes unchecked, which can result in a lot of heartache and financial loss for homeowners who find themselves at odds with their HOA. Personally, I believe that fighting back against such oppressive actions is necessary. By contacting the authorities, I would ensure that there was an official record of the issue and that the HOA's questionable practices were brought to light. This wouldn't just be for my sake but also to help protect other homeowners from potentially falling into similar situations. The more people stand up against unfair treatment, the more likely it is that change will happen. LOL. F the HOA, they screw people all the time and cause losses of houses through liens and crap. I would have stuck it to them. Hoo boy, I am glad Spectrum and your HOA are playing nice after the fact. I used to work for an ISP, and this reminds me of a case that was escalated through me over the course of a couple weeks. For the initial install, they ran a temporary line on the surface of the lawn from the pedestal to the home. This was standard operating procedure as it could normally take 6 to 8 weeks between scheduling and permits to get a permanent buried service wire installed. Well, in this case it had been several months and our customer's HOA was on his case about the temp wire. I come to find out the field operations were not doing any BSW installs because of some dispute with a contractor or a budget issue. It was never made clear what the resolution was, and the management in the area was not cooperative. I was just a lowly call center representative back then. Nowadays I think I could do better at figuring out how to resolve these sort of customer service failures.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.